For many years, there existed only one affordable, ultra-wide zoom lens option for Fuji X-mount users. Recently, however, third-party manufacturers have released several compelling options that cost significantly less than Fuji's own lenses. Surely, this means that anyone looking for the best value in an ultra-wide lens for Fuji X-mount should be shopping for a third-party lens, right? Well, no. I actually think the best value, right now, is a used copy of Fuji's first generation 10-24 f4. In this video, we're going to discuss the available options so that you can make your own decision, and at the end, I'll tell you why I believe the first generation 10-24 is still a great option. Starting out, let's go over which options exist on the market today. There are 4 primary competitors in this space, though only 3 of them are available to purchase new. Starting off, we have the Sigma 10-18 f2.8. This lens was just released in October 2023 with an MSRP of $599 US. Because it's so new, I was unable to find any used copies for sale, so you're likely stuck paying full price for the time being if you want this lens. It is by far the smallest and lightest lens of the bunch, and if you're buying new, it's also the cheapest, though it lacks both weather sealing and image stabilization, and also has the smallest zoom range. Next up is the Tamron 11-20mm f2.8. This lens was released in May of 2023 and has an MSRP of $829 US. Used copies are still quite hard to find, but there was one listed on KEH recently for $715. This lens is fully weather sealed, but also lacks image stabilization. It is larger than the Sigma, but smaller than the Fuji lenses we're going to talk about next. There are 2 versions of the Fuji 10-24 f4 in circulation, and the only differentiation in their name is the WR designation. This can be somewhat confusing, so as you may have already figured out, in this video I'll be referring to the non-WR version as Gen 1 and the WR version as Gen 2. The original Gen 1 version of the 10-24 was released in 2013 and quickly became an extremely popular option for Fuji shooters, who almost universally praised it as an excellent performer. The one glaring oversight that this lens had was a lack of weather sealing, which was a pretty big oversight for a lens that was clearly aimed at landscape photographers. Therefore, in 2020, Fuji released the updated second generation version, adding weather sealing and improving the aperture ring to match their newer, higher quality lenses. One important thing to point out, however, is that the optical formula, and therefore optical performance, remained the exact same between the first and second generation of this lens. Upon releasing the new WR version, the original 10-24 was discontinued, and today it is no longer available to purchase on the new market. This lens is clearly an improvement on the original version, but that doesn't necessarily mean you need to spend the extra money to get it. I should point out that Fuji also makes an 8-16mm f2.8. However, that lens is nearly twice the size, weight, and price of the other lenses we're discussing here today. And since this video is aimed at photographers on a budget, I've chosen to intentionally omit the 8-16 from the discussion. So as you can see, these lenses all have some things in common, but there are also quite a few differences. Most notably, the 2 third-party options both have an f2.8 maximum aperture, where the Fuji 10-24 is f4. This really won't be a big deal for most landscape photographers who shoot stopped down anyway most of the time, but if you're shooting astrophotography or low light scenarios handheld, then you may desire the f2.8. For me, that's not really an important factor. Another thing to consider is that neither one of these third-party lenses has image stabilization. Now, again, if you shoot video or a lot of handheld work, then this could be important to you. But for a landscape photographer who's tethered to a tripod most of the time anyway, this won't be a big deal. Finally, when it comes to weather sealing, the Tamron and the Fuji 10-24 Gen 2 stand out as the clear winners, both having complete weather sealing, both at the lens mount and throughout the entire lens. The Fuji Gen 1 is the clear loser here, having no weather sealing whatsoever. Now, honestly, comparing all of these lenses, if I was shopping on the new market today, I would have a pretty hard time deciding which one to pick. That being said, I don't think the new market is where you should go if you're on a budget and trying to find a value in a lens, right? I think you should be shopping the used market, and the clear winner here in that case is the first generation of the 10-24. because at just over $300 in some places right now online, it represents an incredible value. This is especially true because it has the same optical formula as the newer $1,000 Gen 2 version of the same lens. The only sacrifices you're making by going with the Gen 1 over the Gen 2 are the older aperture ring, as well as the lack of weather sealing. Now, you can certainly live with the older aperture ring. Sure, the new one is nicer, it feels better in your hand, but you're shooting on a tripod anyway. You're gonna set this and forget it a lot of the time, it's not a big deal. As far as weather sealing, I really don't think that the lack of weather sealing is as big of a deal as some people make it out to be, as I'll go over here in a few minutes. So while I tell you about my personal experience with this lens, I'm gonna go ahead and throw up a slideshow of my favorite images that I've taken with it through the years. This was the first Fujifilm lens that I ever purchased, and I've had it since late 2017. I've used this lens almost exclusively for landscape photography, and it's seen pretty much every weather condition you can think of. It's gotten soaked with condensation on long astrophotography shoots, snowed on, rained on, covered in dirt. It's been splashed by, some sea spray up at Acadia National Park, and through all of that, it's always performed flawlessly. I know it doesn't have weather sealing, but this has never proven to be an issue for me. From the first time I picked it up, I've been impressed with its build quality and with the images that it produces. As far as image quality, I've been extremely pleased with this lens, even on my 40 megapixel XH2. It does occasionally have some minor flaring issues when shooting into the sun or with the sun directly in frame, but this is manageable and it's true of most other lenses in this category. Overall, I have nothing bad to say about this lens, and I would recommend it to you without hesitation. If you're in the market for a wide-angle zoom lens on Fuji X mount, I really believe you should consider picking up a used copy of the first generation 10-24. Now, if you truly require weather sealing for your use, then you obviously are going to have to consider spending more money for the Tamron or for the second generation of the Fuji 10-24. But based on my experiences, I honestly believe most photographers can live without the weather sealing and save a bunch of money. In a world where marketing departments are constantly pushing us to believe that we need the latest and greatest, I think it's important that we stop and take a minute to remember that used copies of previous generation lenses can often represent an extreme value and provide the exact same performance as the newer lens. We don't always need to buy the latest and greatest, and I really think that's a problem we have as photographers, is that we really fall prey to marketing departments and all of the hype around new equipment. And I get it because I'm guilty too. Now, my name is Destin. I'm passionate about photography and the adventures that it takes me on. This channel is my attempt to build a community around people who feel the same way and share my beliefs. If you're still here, thanks for sticking around until the end. Please consider giving this video a like and dropping a comment. And as always, remember to subscribe and click the bell icon to receive notifications when I publish new videos. Thanks so much, and have a great day.